Welcome back to the 2014 League of Legends All-Star event. I'm Evie Shoksupporter and I'm here with the captain of Team Fire, Diamond from the European LCS's Gambit. Welcome, Diamond. First off, congratulations on your first win with Team Fire. You guys absolutely smashed Team Ice. Did you come up with a strategy which was getting Bjergsen fed?
Thank you. That was an interesting game. The only thing I told to my teammates that we should take Karmra and Daerek because they are OP. I learned it from a lot of games with my friends in URF, and it was a great experience because it helped us much to win this game. So, and the other thing why we won, it's because of Bjergsen, because his AP Ezreal is just godlike.
Yeah, it was indeed doing very well. Talk to me about your thoughts about the Invitational tournament. I read your blog and you said, I think SKT is going to be the best here, TPA second. Do you still think that after the things that you've seen here so far?
The only thing I can say is don't trust my rankings because I always fail. Always the team which I bet on loses. But yeah, I think that the SKT will get win, but other teams, I don't know. Some of them practiced a lot and some of them get some rest before the new tournament coming. Like LCS Summer is going to be in 1 week after this event, so yeah.
Yeah, of course, very important as well for all the teams involved. A final question, of course, now that we have you here. We just saw the news that Alexis has officially joined NIP. What's kind of your general thoughts about that huge change for Gambit Gaming?
The only thing I can say is that was a great experience to play with him. He is a great player, but it was his decision and we should respect it. And now we're looking for new mid laners, new opportunities for our team, and we really want to go to the World Finals. All our team wish it really, really hard. So we will do an insane amount of work to get there.
That's very nice to hear. Thank you very much, Diamond. Now, everyone is excited for the Fnatic Cloud9 match. So without further ado, let's send it back over to the guys at the desk.
Thank you very much, Shox, and it's great hearing from Diamond. Next up is an all-LCS affair between Fnatic and Cloud9, the two undisputed best teams in their region. Fnatic showed very poor decision-making earlier in the day when it came to Dragon fights. They had absolutely no control versus OMG, and this is demonstrated in their buff control. They only secured 3 out of 12 red buffs, and only 4 out of 12 blue buffs. The other way around, 3 blues, 4 reds. Fact is, it was simply not good enough. Why was their control so lacking, Fischer?
Well, they actually kept even in gold and had decent map vision before the second dragon, where they go down with the poke comp. We talked about it here on the desk. They just start the dragon instantly. Hook lands in from Allen, and the whole fight is on, and Fnatic just lose. They fall behind in gold, and OMG is a team who loves to, whenever they are ahead, go into the enemy jungle and just deny you everything. And Fnatic, their vision control, once they fell behind, it wasn't good enough. They didn't have any wards in their jungle, so OMG kept walking in their jungle, kept taking a buff, kept forcing a fight. We saw it multiple times. Whenever Fnatic came in to try and stop it, Hook more land from Allen or Engage started, and Fnatic just fell further and further behind it. There was no way for them to come back.
I'm actually a little worried about Fnatic because they picked a good composition. They played it wrong. And that happens. I mean, you can make mistakes. But then I saw sOAZ tweet. It's like the reason we lost is the composition. And I'm wondering why would you say that? I really think the composition was good. They could have played it better, but they didn't recognize their power spikes. In turn, if that is indeed where they're at right now, I really hope they go into more a brawl type of play. They look for team fights or just a typical 4-1 split, but with harder engage. So they're ready to just fight the enemy instead of trying to outmaneuver them strategically. Because else, I see the next games going really bad for Fnatic again.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on both points there, where it's like, yeah, just go play a comp that's more Fnatic-like. And I just kind of want to bring up, like, at Season 3 Worlds, Fnatic lost their very first game of the group stage, and then beat Cloud9 in the quarterfinals. And then at IM Katowice, they lost their very first game of the group stage, and then beat Cloud9 in the semifinals.
Who are they facing again next match?
Cloud9! Wow, so it's a surprise. So, yeah, Fnatic, slow start, like, every tournament they've played. They went 0-7 in, like, the middle of the, like, EULCS spring split, right? Like, this happens to Fnatic, and they always rebound, and I think that's just like, well, they got their first game out, they screwed up, but they'll do fine.
It does surprise me a little bit. However, the source goes out after the game and tweets, yeah, we didn't like our comp. I mean, YellOwStaR said we used the entire day yesterday to prepare for this match. How do you then mess it up? I mean, at the same time, you play in favor of OMG for some reason in the game, even though you had a comp which could do something completely different. they really need to show here they have prepared properly for this event against Cloud9 and not do the same kind of mistakes.
Well, we've got very excited about Fnatic. We've been talking about them exclusively because, of course, they've played a game. The only team that is taking part in the Invitational that we haven't seen yet is Cloud9. They are taking to the Rift. They are playing with CLG's mid laner Link. Now, Monty, I want to ask you what your opinion is on Cloud9 as a whole. I assume you've been talking to Link somewhat and may have some insight. So what's your take on them against Fnatic?
I've not only been talking to Link, but I've been watching Cloud9 scrims with Link and listening to their comms as well. And for those of you who don't know, CLG uses more of a two-person late-game shot-calling system between Link and Aframu, whereas my understanding of listening to Cloud9's comms is that Hai is really the dominant shot caller. So he's been trying to, I know, step up and talk even more than he already does on CLG, but he has the same kind of mind as Hai does, and we do really focus very heavily on that big picture strategy. And having watched their scrims, I have a lot of faith actually in Cloud9 with Link. I think that obviously he's got some big shoes to fill. The team has to build up that synergy, but I think they're going to be doing okay coming in.
See, I'm actually a little more worried. We actually scrimmed them, and while it's kind of not cool to give away the privacy of the scrims, they weren't really showing super solid play there, nor was Fnatic. So I think both teams will be making mistakes. Hopefully Cloud9 worked on theirs. But the man I'm going to be watching this game is Balls, because I think if there is one way for Cloud9 to stay in these matches, it's going to be Balls. He's just such a super solid top laner, plays the meta champions all the time, might just play out Rumble again this time, and he's basically a constant all the time. Compared to sOAZ, who has more ups and lows, Balls is just a force you can always count on doing well.
And he had very little impact on that Aurelia early in the game. So we've talked about both of these teams. It is once again that time to talk about the predictions. So putting it to the panel, we're going to run it down the list. To Fishio, are you going with European pride once more, or is apple pie and freedom where you're placing your hopes?
Well, I mean, if I take Fnatic over OMG, I have to take Fnatic over Cloud9 as well.
So Fnatic it is, next down.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go actually for Cloud9 here. I actually have a lot of faith in them, and particularly after seeing Fnatic's earlier game, one thing that Cloud9 rarely makes mistakes in is in terms of playing out a strategy from a composition. And Fnatic, in my mind, was just an absolute mess. So I'm going with Cloud9.
Ooh, strong words.
See, I like being even with Monty, but I like it even more when he's on the bottom. So I'm going for Fnatic.
Yeah, Crepo and I are going to be high-fiving in first place, because I'm saying Fnatic.
That's not a high five.
That's a fist bump.
Yes, I said we're going to be high-fiving. After the game, we do one of those. Okay. And we're good to go.
We're just checking. Well, anyways, thank you for locking your votes in. It's time to check and see how the fans are calling this game. According to LOL Esports, Fnatic is leading Cloud9 by 58% of the vote. Fnatic and Cloud9 are almost ready to get on the Rift, so let's send it back over to our casters once more.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. I'm Joe Miller, along with Joshua Jack Leesman, and while the teams are gearing up, let's check out the starting lineups for this battle of the best here in the European and North American LCS. On the blue side, representing Europe, it's Fnatic, with sOAZ in the top lane, Cyanide in the jungle, xPeke in the mid lane, and the duo of Rekkles and YellOwStaR.
And on the red side, of course, it is Cloud9, with Balls in the top lane, Meteos in the jungle, Link, CLG's former mid laner, now filling in the mid lane, Sneaky on AD carry, and of course LemonNation on support.
And we'll be watching those AD carries carefully in this one, with Rekkles battling Sneaky in our featured matchup.
Yeah, and Joe, these guys are actually a lot more similar than they would seem at first glance. They both have the highest KDA for their position in their respective regions, but it's not because they play passively, they just both play really smart, going in at the right moments. Sneaky is a more versatile person as far as what he can pick. He's went through 8 different champions throughout the split, and he's the guy who will pick the AD carry that really fits in a team comp, whereas Rekkles, he plays what works for him. He's only played 5 different champions since joining the LCS. He's stuck with that here. He's also the fan favorite, as you can see very clearly, but he put up great numbers for Fnatic, who went on to win that spring split.
Yeah, there's absolutely no debate who is the fan favorite here in the hall, to the point where, you know, we had the boos for Cloud9 earlier on. Fnatic basically shook the building when they came on stage right at the start of the day. So we'll see if that works in Fnatic's favor. Of course, they've already lost one game here today. What needs to change from your side, Jet?
Well, as far as Fnatic goes, they just need to make sure to stick to their trends and pay attention to the trends of the other team. If we look back all the way to that OMG, I know Crepo said they had a good team composition, and for the most part, they did. But really, if they would have picked Lulu when they picked Karmra, it would have denied OMG's mid lane from Lulu. It would have given it to sOAZ in the top lane. sOAZ says Lulu is his favorite champion to play in the top lane. That would have been the prototype poke comp for them. And they just need to make sure they get something more comfortable for sOAZ in this one.
Well, here we go then, into picks and bans. First up on the ban list for Fnatic is Evelyn. Kassadin also coming in here on the red side, seeing that good old Kassadin returning as a ban for every red team.
I was actually looking forward to Kassadin being played in this one because I have a bunch of things I want to say about the new Kassadin and what it brings. It's a little strong at the moment. It was actually nerfed in the 4.7 patch that just shipped last night in some regions, so expect to see it banned a lot more, especially against xPeke.
So, next ban's coming in then. Ziggs taken away by Fnatic. Another mid lane ban for Cloud9 as they remove LeBlanc. So Peke's options going to be somewhat diminished coming into this into their first round of picks here, and we'll see if the third and final ban is focused towards Peke. The likes of Nidalee, of course, which he's been really favouring recently. Last ban for Fnatic was the Jax.
We're definitely seeing a trend towards a lot of mid lane bans. I like the fact that Lucian was actually banned out. That was Rekkles' far and away most played AD carry during the season. Of course, though, that means a lock-in for Kha'Zix. That doesn't really phase Cloud9, though. Meteos played he played every game of the playoffs on Elise.
Yep.
It's his most played champion throughout the regular season, and it's left unbanned. So first picking Kha'Zix, I don't really think affects him. He'll pick Elise at his leisure.
We'll see if that comes in this first round here. Of course, we did see sOAZ playing the Kha'Zix in their first game earlier on today against OMG. Didn't have the most success, that's for sure. Did steal a Baron in typical Cyanide fashion, though.
I'd say for the overall team, the Kha'Zix didn't do that great, but Cyanide had a really good game individually. He had the double kill right at the start of the game.
That's true.
Including the Baron steal you just mentioned, so it's definitely a powerful pick. But these, in my opinion, are more powerful because not only do they give Cloud9 exactly what they want in the Morgana, which is their most played support, also 11-0, undefeated in NALCS Plus playoffs on that, and the Lulu, which Link played tied for most of all the champions he's played, and it denies it from sOAZ. Those are two really smart first two picks by Cloud9. They're a team that really does their research.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 games played in the playoffs in the North American LCS for LemonNation on that Morgana, and as you said, doesn't lose all that much. In fact, only the one single time, I believe, that he's actually lost with that one. So, moving on then back towards Fnatic. Kha'Zix already locked in here for Cyanide in the jungle. A repeat pick for him in the second game here at All-Stars. What are Fnatic going to go with now? Running down this clock quite heavily. Graves would be an interesting pick, considering that Rekkles' champion pool has been smaller than most AD carries around.
It is. He actually has the smallest champion pool going into this event of any player that is playing here. But that doesn't include Graves. And I believe the reason he's picked Graves here is very relevant to the Lucian ban. It's as close as you can get to playstyle of Lucian with that Graves. But these picks from Cloud9, as usual, are fast and furious.
Yeah, know exactly what they want and don't waste any time picking those up. We talked about Elise already. 5 games out of 5 in the playoffs for Meteos on that Elise, and put up some really fantastic performances and numbers as well. The Twitch coming out this time around, though, for Sneaky.
I think this is a really cool pick by them. It's not something Sneaky even played during the regular season, and it's actually something I was looking for the other regions to bring out of All-Stars, because BB and Piglet were 80 carries that play it prolifically.
Yeah.
And it was actually banned in the last game. So Sneaky pulling it off in this game just shows that he's been practicing and he knows the top picks. So
for Fnatic then, of course, their final 2 picks looking for a top and mid lane, and we can see Peke there not looking his happiest. I was watching the player cams in their last game as well, and sOAZ looked very, very down on how that all went down for them. We'll see this Shyvana returning to a champion that he's played sporadically throughout the season so far. Orianna will be locked in as well.
They went with these 2 picks, and it's going to heavily influence their playstyle when you compare it with how they did against OMG. This is not a poke composition. While it has poke aspects, it's very much a team that can teamfight. They're going to look for a completely different game plan here, knowing they can go in with the Orianna and Shyvana and try to pull off some combos.
And the last time, actually, that Orianna was played for Peke was way back, actually, in the European LCS in a defeat to Alliance. Funnily enough, that was their last defeat in that horrible run that they had
losing
after
streak.
beating everyone and then going on to lose. That was an Orianna game for him there, as I said, a loss to them. Final pick here, though, for Cloud9, for the top lane of Balls, is going to be Trundle.
Yeah, even though Balls has his most played Renekton Shyvana, he's undefeated on Trundle 4-0. Obviously, Cloud9 has a lot of very impressive records because if you include the playoffs, they were 29-4 in the North American LCS. So it's a little bit skewed here. What this really means, as far as team compositions go, is that Fnatic is actually a little bit outside their comfort zone, playing a bit more of an initiation style, whereas Cloud9 is still very much at home with what they've been doing. The only new thing is a Twitch, but that is because that's what Sneaky's been practicing. That's what he's going to be comfortable with. It's really going to come down to, I think, which Fnatic shows up, the one that is on the giant losing streak or the one that wins the European split, and how Cloud9 adapts to lane, because these team comps don't really have huge advantages one way or the other.
And that's the thing about Fnatic, you know, we say that they always produce on the highest levels. They've done so traditionally when it comes to the European LCS, of course, 3 splits that they've had, won all 3 of them as well. Worlds, they managed to get pretty far as well. So we'll see if they can turn around that favor, as I think it was FLICKR mentioned earlier on. They've traditionally lost games and then gone on to win them afterwards. And then beat Cloud9 specifically. So we'll see if their fortunes change with this one. When those champions selected, head to Twitter and guys, let us know which jungler you think will have the biggest impact in this game. Tweet #Cyanide or #Meteos and send those to @LOLEsports. For you, we've got Meteos on that undefeated Elise pick once again.
I think if Cloud9 is going to win specifically, it's going to be Meteos making the biggest impact. Specifically with him having to pick up more slack, I feel like with Link in the mid lane, proud, of course.
They're on fire today.
They're going to be a little cheery for Fnatic whenever anything big happens, but honestly, if Cloud9 is to succeed, Meteos has to destroy on Elise, and Cyanide had a fantastic Kha'Zix game against OMG in defeat, so it's going to be a good matchup.
So here we go then, in-game, it's Fnatic versus Cloud9. A big rivalry, North American champions versus European champions. And look at this, right now at level 1, Fnatic are looking to set something up with a 5-man push to make that now as YellOwStaR comes down towards the Tribush. We've seen quite a lot of level 1 action here today already.
More than I would have expected.
Yeah.
For sure. Obviously these trinkets still on the 2-minute cooldown at the start of the game, so a lot of guesswork coming in early, and against a Morgana, you have to be very careful about where you go.
Especially if you're going to stack up as well, those dark bindings become all the more easy to hit, let's call it, if you're all grouped up in there together. Fnatic at the moment, see, just keeping 1 man in the Tribush, the others were waiting off to the side, but obviously Fnatic feel like there's maybe nothing for the immediate take in there, but from positioning here, looks like they're at least going to be going up to get a ward if in that blue buff area, if not stick around and take it.
And the laning matchups, as far as will we see 80 carries play against each other, will be kind of the team's choices here. I talked with a lot of the pros over the weekend about exactly why we see so many lane swaps. Obviously the how has been discussed a bunch and is still, everyone has a different opinion, but the why is if there's any risk of your 2v2 lane not winning, they just swap, because that will skip the laning phase. And then as we've seen today in the All-Stars, every regional team has a slightly different take on the optimal way to swap, whether it's the 4-0, whether it's the heavier counter jungle strategy with slightly less pushing, which will give more farm to your top laner and your 80 carry, or what Cloud9 and Fnatic decide to do right here.
Well, we are going to be seeing 2 versus 2 down on the bottom lane here. Rekkles and YellOwStaR versus Sneaky and LemonNation fits in with our featured matchup as well. Going to see how these guys keep in there and whether they stick around in this lane or do a switch the first time that they end up recalling.
Yeah, but Fnatic probably won the mind game here, unless Meteos reads that he wants to go steal the blue, and surprisingly, he's actually trending towards that direction, so junglers are going to end up trading buffs, and we're going to get those standard lanes that I've actually been waiting to see for a while from these guys.
Certainly a change from the norm nowadays, we can safely say. Those lane swaps becoming all the more prolific. There is Meteos doing the Fnatic blue buff. He's in no danger right now. Got a ward just below him. Cyanide, of course, has already done that blue and is back over on towards his red. There's a nice little bit of work from YellOwStaR. A poke of Karmra, proving a little bit difficult so far for Cloud9.
Yeah, and Karmra Graves has a tremendous amount of just straight up damage. Karmra in particular is probably the strongest support level 1 through 2 because she can empower her abilities right off the bat. Meteos trying a very early gank in top lane. he loves to support balls, more so than almost any other jungler.
Done well there to land the cocoon onto sOAZ, but you already saw Ball's not really following up from that one. It was just a case of showing your presence, make sOAZ feel a little bit more under pressure. Should note that sOAZ already used his teleport. Of course, he was in the Cloud9 jungle earlier with his own jungler and has now teleported to that top lane, so that's not available for him. Balls does still have his though, so keep an eye on that if anything breaks out, for example, down in this bottom lane where the 2v2s are stacking up. Cloud9 seem very happy to just sit back here on their own turret and get those last hits off without taking too much damage and risk being too far up the lane.
They're going to get a little bit pushed in, and in all honesty, the Twitch scales much better than the Graves does. So if they can sit at their turret, trade farm, not die, and not get the turret pushed, everything is going as planned because they're actually not very gankable from that position, and it will open up Meteos to make a few more moves.
This mid lane being very, very quiet, despite being a lane which we have to keep a big eye on, though we want to keep a big eye on. Having Link here in for Cloud9 as High is out, of course, and best wishes to him, by the way, if he is watching. And Rekkles going to get hit here with the Dark Binding, but again, it's only a little bit of follow-up damage to come out there from the Twitch. They have moved away from that turret now, pushing this lane much further out than before.
Fnatic actually wants Cloud9 to overcommit here because they have Cyanide waiting in the wings. Cyanide hasn't shown himself on the map really until this moment if he decides to go in with that Karma tether, very aggressive. That'll kind of tip off that someone's coming.
You can see the shield come out there from LemonNation. Cyanide gonna jump into it though. LemonNation flashes away. Rekkles trying to get involved. The poke not quite landing there, and they're unable to turn that gank into a kill for them. But it just shows that Cloud9 have to be real careful with how far they come up the lane.
Yeah, each member of Cloud9's bottom lane burned a summoner, but Rekkles also burned his flash, which will make him much more vulnerable if Meteos decides to go down there. It is a trade in the advantage of Fnatic, but it definitely wasn't free.
So this mid lane then, farm very, very even. Peke with this wave will take a slight advantage, and Meteos, knowing that Cyanide was down on that bottom side of the map, is quite happy right now to just take as much farm away as possible from Cyanide's jungle. Got a 5 CS lead from that, just to give you the early stats on how those two players are in fact doing right now.
Something that I find really interesting about these two regions, actually, and it will reflect a little bit in these playstyles, is the European region, just overall, compared to North America, had higher farm, lower kill games, with much more just longer laning phases where farming was more of a priority of killing. And when we see this laning phase, you would kind of expect xPeke to be more at home against Link and be able to out-farm him. He averaged 79 CS a 10 during the regular season, whereas Link averaged 73. And Link is actually one of the only mid laners in this tournament whose opponents average more CS in the lane than him, because he is a very macro team-focused mid laner, whereas Peke is fantastic in lane as well.
Really interesting what impact Link is going to have. We heard already from Monte Cristo earlier on about the whole difference in calling styles between Link's native CLG and how High has been doing that traditionally here for Cloud9. And going to be very, very interesting to see how they've had this little bit of time to prepare and who's adjusted really to the style.
And if we're going to see the impacts of that, Joe, it's going to be after 9 minutes, because that's when the game really usually starts to break down. If this laning phase extends, we're not going to see the impacts of that until they start roaming around, because High is the person that tells everyone where to go. And as soon as they have to start moving around the map, that's when it's going to make a big impact, whether or not Link can step up, because that's actually been one of Fnatic's strengths for their entire existence.
Well, so far, in terms of map movement, Cyanide has definitely been a jungler that's had more presence in these lanes. Was down in the bottom lane a couple of times, is now up towards the top side of the map. Meteos, apart from that repel into, you know, not a dangerous gank, is what I'm trying to say. He's been farming quite heavily in this one.
He is definitely a jungler who specializes in efficiency more than anything else, and he absolutely shows a tendency to gank the top lane. One thing I am also really interested in this game is Cloud9 opting for the standard lanes is something they actually did all 3 games in their dominating finals victory over Team Solo Mid. Because almost the entire regular season, people were talking about how great they were at rotations and how they would just out-tactics other teams, and they weren't great individually. Then they stomped TSM 3 times in a row standard lanes. They're actually still doing that style against Fnatic, kind of trying to just bring the game down to individual skill in the lanes because they're confident in themselves.
We've seen YellOwStaR down on that bottom side, constantly trying to get in there and tether up Sneaky, which of course completely countered from LemonNation's Morgana choice here with that Black Shield. stopping all the CC coming into it. The farm down in that bottom lane is incredibly close, in fact bang even, as we really touch on that one. Little bit of a difference in item choices here from the start though. We see the BF Sword, Doran's Blade start for Rekkles. On the other side, Sneaky going for the Vamp Scepter early.
There's a good chance Sneaky will go Blade of the Rune King off that Vamp Scepter, whereas Rekkles is absolutely going Bloodthirster, but the fact that he could save up for his BF Sword will give him an immediate trade advantage if they ever do decide to fight and go all in against each other. That's what Rekkles wants to do against Sneaky, is go all in and out-trade.
So here are those first blue buffs being exchanged. Meteos once again is going to come to this top lane. sOAZ does have his ultimate and a flash available, and once again Balls just getting a bit of damage down there. Meteos will for a second time actually land in here.
The
ultimate Cyanide's coming in here. Will they be able to get in? Good repel from Meteos. Cyanide down to less than half HP. They need to be real careful about this one. Balls going low. He actually flashes out with that one, and now Meteos flashes in. There's a flash away. Cyanide turns it around. First blood Fnatic. Crazy fight in the top lane.
Absolute skill matchup right there in the top lane with Fnatic coming out on top. They baited that in not once, but twice. The first time was just to wait for Cyanide to come there. So they actually ended up starting that one late, and then they pulled Meteos all the way into the turret to get that kill.
We hear there, the crowd here. As we said, definitely a lot of Fnatic fans in the house, and well, to be honest, when you've got two French players on your team and you're playing in France, it's definitely something that you can come to expect. They get the first blood. We're about to hit the 10-minute mark. If you look at the global goal, 13.4 to 13,000. So half a thousand gold, which is 500 if you're used to normal numbers. Good start here for Fnatic. Slower paced game though because of these more standard or older standard lanes, I guess we can say now.
Yeah, definitely not an accelerated game that we've been so used to seeing. Meteos, though, is just continuing to put time into this top lane as usual.
And there's another Cocoon coming in, but again, they don't want to go underneath that tower. sOAZ had his ultimate back available. Flash was burnt, of course, in that last encounter, so didn't have that for him. And just playing it very calm, I think, in that top lane. Not panicking and just diving straight out there instantly. And that one, we'll see if Meteos continues to try and give Balls the advantage. And we can say that so far it's working out nicely for them. The 20 CS lead for Balls in that top lane.
It's exactly what Meteos and the rest of Cloud9 have tried to do. They focus on using Balls as their asset because he was far and away the strongest top laner in North America. sOAZ, though, is a spectacular player in his own right, and to me it shows that Fnatic really does their homework against Cloud9. There's a reason they tend to have their number in international competition. Cyanide being there for the counter gank is just them predicting that Meteos is going to help out Balls even more so, and they cannot let Balls get ahead of sOAZ, otherwise it plays right into Cloud9's hands.
And that trend you mentioned earlier of Link losing out on farm in this direct 1-versus-1 comparison in mid lane, that trend's continuing. 20 CS lead is what Peke has currently over Link. Both players are working their way up towards that. Athenes and are in very similar positions when it actually comes to item builds. If we actually look now down at the 280 carry builds, we see that the BF Sword has been picked up a little bit earlier, of course. Rekkles already talked about that. Got his Vamp Scepter now, so straight up towards that Bloodthirster. Sneaky on the other side, going for that Blade of the Rune King start. As we see Peke and Cyanide coming towards the top.
A lot of people
going to go in, and the Shockwave, he's pulled the trigger far too early on that one.
That was them trying a little bit too hard to stop what Balls and Meteos are up to, and it will actually give a bit of breathing room to Link in the mid lane. This is the beginning of the map movement. It's 12 minutes in now. We're going to see higher level champions, more explosive skills, and with the items being completed, this is when the map movement becomes even more important. And if High's weakness is going to show through, it's going to show through now.
And look at this, Cyanide and Meteos pretty much mirroring each other here in positioning. Easier when there's a ward on top, that's a good jump away. The Cocoon already flying over direction Cyanide. Here is a push in the bottom lane. YellOwStaR going to get the stun off there onto LemonNation, and Sneaky now being completely isolated from his teammate. Is he going to be able to finish him off though? Didn't even use the ultimate there. Sneaky also had a heal, had his flash available if needed.
That was a really slick trade there by YellOwStaR, isolating LemonNation from Sneaky. It was really just a play on good AD carry mechanics from both sides, because when LemonNation got caught, it pulled Sneaky up, because that's the main way you stop people from hitting your support, is you show threat onto the other AD carry. As soon as that happened, though, the wall got in the way. LemonNation had to split, and they could jump right onto Sneaky, burning them both to fairly low health. They did have a fair amount of health potions ticking, though, and they're starting to heal back up to try and negate the effect of that. Really nice trade.
And both of the AD carries, of course, got decent amounts of lifesteal in there as well, so shouldn't be having problems. Here we see Meteos. First time, actually, that he'll be coming down towards his bottom lane. Let's see Fnatic get lured into this one, and it looks like they will. Meteos moving forward from this one. YellOwStaR gonna be getting stunned up. No flash available, and LemonNation picking up the kill there onto YellOwStaR.
The timely gank. Meteos had actually been getting a bit away from his efficient playstyle by camping top a little bit too predictably. That time after sweeping the bottom of the jungle, he makes way straight into the bot lane, gets a kill, and they might try this dragon though. The Dragon Steel Master is waiting though. 5 versus 4. Rightly pointed out that Cyanide at the backside of Dragon here is always going to be a threat. They've got a ward there for Fnatic. So Cyanide sees it. Here comes the teleport. Cloud9 looking to move away. They manage to bind up Rekkles. That stops the full chase coming in. Well, there is the dive right from the top. So in the middle of the team. Sneaky doing good damage back. LemonNation going low. He will fall in the end, but they may lose 2 men. There's a big shockwave coming out in the end from xPeke. Have they got any more damage to do here? xPeke got plenty of mana still to work with. The damage is good, but it's not enough for kills. Remember, Joe, that was actually a 4v5, so even though Fnatic took 2 deaths, that's not a huge loss for them. Look at how many summoner spells they actually burned on the other side. Flash Exhaust from LemonNation, Flash Ignite from Link. They're going to have that advantage come next fight, plus they get the turret afterwards. All things considered, the fans are cheering. That was a Fnatic win. Here we go then. There is a replay once again. Could have been a lot worse if Rekkles hadn't got binded. Yeah, it really looked right here like Fnatic was in a lot of trouble, but the support from the rest of Fnatic coming in from the bottom of the screen, the ultimate from Rekkles, and then the brilliant shockwave catching 3. The Elise was up in the air, but really doing enough damage and pushing them back is what saved them in that one. And that leaves us with a 3-2 in kills, still in favor of Cloud9. The gold lead sticks with Fnatic. Dragon, of course, in all of that, wasn't taken down. So Fnatic, as you mentioned, it was a 5 versus 4. Not only were they able to stop the Dragon attempt from Cloud9, well, they picked themselves up a kill there in the end as well. We'll see, though, who goes towards this Dragon and at what point, with both duos now having both of their champions in this bottom lane once again. We do have Cyanide moving down. Meteos is moving in there as well, so we might not be too far away from an encounter there. Yeah, a binding lands in that bot lane, and they're going to start destroying each other. The Dragon is still getting pulled on. This time the top laners can't be involved, and it would be a 4v4. They actually go in without sweeping because they are feeling this much more confident in this fight. Whether it's blind confidence or not, I'm not quite sure. They have to back away. Well, we see the Fnatic gonna jump in from this one. LemonNation goes very, very low. There is a shockwave. LemonNation gets away, but Rekkles is pushing through. Cyanide stealthing in there as well. Have they got the damage? Yes, they will. Cyanide gets one. He finished off by Sneaky though. xPeke wants more, and he may just get more here. Meteos goes down. Are they gonna go for anyone else? LemonNation still very low there at the back. They didn't get it in the end, but it's a 2-for-1 for Fnatic. Really great charge there by Fnatic, having the confidence with the shockwave. Fan chance coming in, and now they have a chance to control the Dragon. High's gonna think about this one, but then think better. Look at the size of that. Full house here today in Paris, and well, see if that brings Fnatic any luck. Of course, already losing their first game against OMG earlier on in the day. This one starting off much better for them, though. We see that they now control a 2,000 gold lead. Yeah, and sOAZ has to go back right now. I wonder if Balls are going to push up and try and get a turret. You can see the amount of gold he is sitting on was about 2,200, and this whole time that 4v4 was happening in the bottom lane, he's been down a completed item. It's a Blade of the Ruined King on Balls versus just the Cutlass for sOAZ, and that means he loses out in the majority of these trades. He still hasn't had the window to go back, so if a fight erupts up here, it could actually go in the hands of Cloud9 just because of the amount of gold in inventory. Well, this could be dangerous for him. Meteos moving again towards his top lane. He's tried time after time to really lock sOAZ down. Of course, they were baited into that fight further to give the first blood over towards Cyanide, who is now sat at 3-2-1. Picked himself up a Hex Drinker as well. There is sOAZ moving out. Meteos is still waiting in there, and there is a position. Another Cocoon lands. sOAZ going to take a lot of damage, but again has the safety of his ultimate to get back into tower range. Cloud9 does this a lot. That was round 1 to burn the ultimate. They still have the ultimate of Trundle if they want to tank this turret. They're really considering it, but sOAZ does a spectacular job to clear the wave. Wave cleared, and there is his window to actually go back and spend some of that hard-earned cash. Still
behind in CS has brought it back to a more respectable level than it was. We see there the Blade of the Ruin King actually finished off for him. Meanwhile, Fnatic pressure in the bottom lane.
And things are looking great for Fnatic right now. The turret is low. Wow, Peke actually beat Link to the spot.
And there is a Black Shield timing out, and they dash straight onto Sneaky. Good wild growth though coming in. Cyanide's in the middle of them. It's Peke that gets the kill onto Sneaky. LemonNation trying to run away. Again lands a clutch binding, this time onto Cyanide to stop him chasing through.
Kill and the turret. Peke is obliterating the Cloud9 team right now with the timing of his shockwaves and the movement from mid lane. He got the CS advantage. Now he's winning other lanes for him. There's a fight breaking out.
YellOwStaR going very, very low from that one. Crowd loving it at this point. The blue buff going to be contested, but here comes Meteos from the backside. Fnatic are very, very low in this one. Cyanide goes low, jumps away from it, doesn't get the slow. Meteos dodges that one completely with a repel, and that is going to be a kill.
Oh man, they got the rest of Fnatic cornered.
Completely sandwiched in between Cloud9
and the teleport.
TP from Balls is coming in as well. Rekkles trying to stay alive as long as he can. Peke might get a kill here. Rekkles actually takes down Link. They do finally finish off Peke, but Rekkles is the next target. Meanwhile, Meteos going low. sOAZ is trying to get that kill, does get that kill as well. 3 for 2 right now. They are going to lose sOAZ. That ends with a 4 for 2 in favor of Cloud9.
What a bloodbath right there. You can definitely say Fnatic overstayed their welcome because Sneaky actually came all the way back from the death, returned to the fight just for the cleanup. Let's take another look at this one, how low Fnatic is. It was really just the movement from Meteos to cut in and corner here. Cloud9 loves the combo of the stun from Elise and the dark binding because it allows them to lock down targets and cut off areas of retreat. The binding is actually what pushed the 3 members of Fnatic back towards the lane. Therefore, Meteos could cut them off from the other side. When the double TPs came in, this just ensured the bloodbath because it meant both teams were trying to commit. At this point, Fnatic can't think about how bad a position they are in with Twitch returning, and Twitch finishes the job onto sOAZ. Luckily, he could pick up that kill onto Meteos.
Taking something for... Well, not really for nothing, was it, when it's a 4 for 2, but yeah, at least getting it on the way out there, knowing that he's facing a certain death. Where does that leave us? Still, Cloud9 holding slight lead when it comes to kill, but they are still behind in gold. About 1,500 now, so that difference of 2,000 just a couple of minutes ago is closing somewhat for Cloud9. One worry you've got to feel is Peke, even though in that situation there he was super low the entire time, he's putting out so much damage already.
Exactly, he's 1,000 gold ahead of what Link has, and his death cap is going to be completed fairly quickly. Cloud9 doesn't even have a very high damage team with the Lulu mid, so they got to be very careful that Peke's shields don't get too powerful. Plus they got the buff invade pressure to get the turret.
Red buff steal, Paul sticking around here with 2 men right in front of him, the other 3 from Fnatic off to the side. Don't really want to go for that Trundle though, the tankiest man over on the Cloud9 team. And Cloud9 making a bit of a positional play here, knowing that Fnatic are on that top side of the map. They push 3 men towards this middle outer turret.
This is the moment of the game where Cloud9 was best in North America, but how are they going to be with Link here, making the calls and trying to get them to move around? They're already down 3 turrets to 1, so that puts them at an immediate disadvantage. How are they going to adapt to a team like Fnatic, who is so brilliant in their rotations with wards and getting picks?
See sOAZ and Balls, that matchup there not really, or shouldn't really be killing each other without any outside help from that one. LemonNation was trying to get involved, but sOAZ had already pretty much just ran away with the help of that Blade of the Ruin King. So back to a quieter period now, but we have less than a minute until the next dragon comes into play. Last one, of course, went over to Fnatic after Cloud9 had started it off a couple of times.
And I'm really curious about what's going to happen at this next dragon, because Cloud9 is behind in turrets right now, and they are pretty sure Fnatic's going to be going for the dragon. I wouldn't be too surprised if Cloud9 tries to almost let Fnatic get the dragon so they can push the mid-turret. In order for Fnatic to counter that, though, it's all about how strong Peke is and how much pressure he can put on Link. If they can keep that mid-turret wave pushed into the interior turret of Cloud9, they can take Dragon without the minions pushing down the mid-turret and have their cake and eat it too, basically, because they would be a little bit stronger in the Dragon fight.
So only 10 seconds then for that one. Fnatic a little bit more spread out from this one, as we see the Twin Shadows coming out there. Actually picked up for LemonNation. We did see that item being picked up by him in the playoffs as well over in North America. Really likes that one. Fnatic are in the better position right now. They've got a couple of wards down there, trying to get a few more in as well. They've got a decent amount of vision over where Cloud9 are approaching.
mean, Lemon would have loved to have a Twin Shadows into a Dark Binding because it makes the skill almost unmissable, but it's already burned. And Fnatic's actually the one that's doing the turret pressure instead of the Dragon, kind of beating Cloud9 to the punch here, pulling Cloud9 away from their own jungle and maybe catching them in the corridor.
Sneaky moving, stealthed up around the back so that he could get into a safe position to clear out that wave. And look at this, Cloud9 moving forward, scanning as they go, getting 2 wards for 1 really.
That is
with
such
one.
a dangerous spot.
Yeah, they've caught Link completely out of position. He's going to use the wild growth on himself, but honestly, I'm not sure that he'll get away. There is the Black Shield coming in. Cyanide still chasing, and while I'm wrong on that one, Link will get away from it, but that leaves a 5v4 now for Fnatic at Dragon.
He'll get away, but it completely cost them the Dragon. Fnatic had already put Cloud9 in a difficult situation, trapping them in that corridor, because anytime they want to move down and around and try and get vision control back, they're at risk of having someone getting caught out. They're lucky it wasn't a kill and the Dragon, that it was just the Dragon, but it's still a loss.
Guys on the analysis desk did say earlier on that things have to change
Sneaky.
with Dragon control. Sneaky gonna come in for this one. Flash there from Peke. We'll get him away quick enough. Lost about half of his HP, but we'll be able to just run back from this one. Does have his death cap back death cap now finished.
The shield helped him stay alive, but that move right there by Sneaky is why Twitch is such a strong champion internationally. He wasn't really picked up by North America during the season, but that's why Sneaky has him now. Even in the mid-game, there's always that threat that he could come up against the most farmed member on the other team, and because he got the drop on him, he burned a flash without really burning much of his own other than his Blade of the Ruined King active.
So Meteos, once again, he's spent almost more time in this top lane than he has farming his jungle, I think, or what it seems like at this stage of things. The question is, are they feel comfortable enough to go under the tower? Doesn't look like it. We already see the recall being used there by Meteos. He's just going to go back away from it. So as we should mention, that CS difference, that lead that Balls has had pretty much the entire game here, still stands. 214 to 189 CS. You can see that he's actually working himself up here, Balls, towards that Randuin's Omen. On the other side of things, sOAZ actually got himself the workings of a Guardian Angel.
He has the 2 components to it. That would be a curious choice for him. I hope he's just going for different components of items. The Randuin's maybe with his Chain Vest or a Sunfire Cape, and then a Spear Fist or a Banshee's Veil. With the other one, he's just getting those components right now. As far as teamfighting is concerned for sOAZ, though, he's got to be really careful about himself. I know Dyrus had a horrendous series against Cloud9, where it seemed like he was stunned the whole time. Basically because, teleport coming in from Cloud9, actually. They might try and stop this invade.
Oh, Rekkles has just dashed over the wall. Actually, they decide to focus towards Peke. This is a 5 versus 1. He's not going to be taken down easily, though. Does damage over towards Sneaky, but Link will finish off that one. In the end, I thought they might head for Rekkles as he dashed towards the TP, but, well, Peke all isolated on the top side. Just a bit of dodgy position in there.
They were trying to greedily take away that blue buff, and it ends up costing them another death onto Peke. But it's the stun from Elise and the Dark Binding from Morgana that can keep front lines at bay, which is why the Mercury Treads are such an important purchase for sOAZ. That's something Dyrus did not do in the finals against Cloud9.
So I see him waiting off to the side, and we can see that he does have now the more Randuin's direction completed.
Yep.
It's interesting to see where he go with that one, and that confirms it for us. That turret here down way low and will be finished off this push by Cloud9. That's their 2nd of the game so far.
And Balls is going to become a monster. The more sOAZ tries to tank up to be the front line that eats all the crowd control, the tankier he is going to make Balls when he uses the ultimate on him and just steals his armor and magic resistance. Already 2-0-4. These solo lanes and the damage dealers for Cloud9 are actually doing very well, enough to make me say I do not know who's going to win this game despite Fnatic's gold.
See a lot of wards coming down over by Baron there as well. In fact, Fnatic with that have actually started to move up here. He comes Sneaky from the side. They're going to try and single him out. Actually, we'll have to flash away from this one. And in the end, the lifesteal really helping him to stay alive from that. Dangerous for Fnatic at the start. Good reactions from sOAZ to push him away, though.
Some risky business by Sneaky there, but sOAZ had the right read. Twitch forces you into very split decisions right there. He jumps up on you, and he's using that spray and pray. Or Rat-a-tat. Still, I'm not sold on that name change. But it's one or the other. You have to make the decision immediately, and sOAZ decided the right one to go in instead of out. Otherwise, they would have just gotten a bunch of free damage out of it.
So back off from both teams here as go out to spend on a few different items. Randuin's done 4 balls. See where he goes after that one. Currently having a bit of a free reign on this top. That 20 CS lead, and I keep harping on around, really has stuck for this entire game. And now, with that extra armor in there, will he go more aggressive and sneaky? Gonna pop up here on towards Rekkles, but actually, Rekkles turns this one around. Can they get the shockwave onto him? No, they can't. Sneaky sped up there by Link.
Yeah, Cyanide might actually look to make something happen here. But what's so slick here is normally when Twitch goes in, he's very much fully committed because he used all his move speed, he's revealed his stealth, and he shoots you. But because they have the Lulu here that can give him move speed, if it doesn't work, he can actually retreat as well, which makes him an even more formidable weapon for Cloud9 against Fnatic here.
So there, a bit of a support battle as LemonNation said, okay, you want to clear my ward? Here's Baron aggro for you. Take a couple of hits from that one. Cloud9 themselves moving in here and getting the better of that pink ward, so saving their ward in the backside. Everyone around. They go. Baron, they're going to get the shockwave off here, surely. Cyanide tries to get in. Good binding, gets slowed down, and he may be forced to back away from this one. All the CC landing at once. Yeah, and it's a real push-pull here. sOAZ wanted to flank, but they couldn't close in from both positions. They might keep doing this dance. 40 seconds till Dragon comes up, which we may see one team move for, but right now Fnatic have decided, is that middle lane maybe where we want to go for Meteos around the back, may get caught out, flashes away, Cyanide dives in, Meteos already using his rappel to get over into the raid camp though. Fnatic keeps catching Cloud9 in tricky positions and Cloud9 keeps barely escaping, but then the question is, what does that really cost him? Now Meteos can't try the flank because his flash is down, whereas Fnatic really didn't burn much. Blast back there from YellOwStaR. Landing the shots onto LemonNation. So Dragon, after that bit of action by Baron, is certainly the more realistic target here as we approach the 30-minute mark in this game between the two champion teams of the North American and European LCS. Fnatic are there. Cloud9 not so much though. They're coming now. There's pretty much no vision control by Cloud9 here. It was dangerous for them to even walk this far and check it. It means they really value this Dragon overall and want the fight. Balls is actually closer here because his teleport isn't up, but their top turret is taking fire. They have to go for the Dragon almost immediately, otherwise they lose turrets. Make the decision. Cloud9 need to choose what they're going to do with this one. Actually, sOAZ has started to back away there. Keep going. Teleport is available. You'd think he's going to keep going. He has moved back on towards the tower, which is at about half HP. Fnatic just stalling here down by Dragon. It's such a great position for Fnatic to be in. They either make Cloud9 walk into a shockwave, or they get free turrets. Cloud9 has to walk in. Cloud9 actually pushing Fnatic back with the zoning power of xPeke alone here with the threat of that shockwave could keep them off. Cloud9 is taking so much harass damage from that Orianna ball, and the Dragon is still low. There's a shockwave onto one though. This means Cloud9 could get the Dragon or fight. They have to do it soon. And there is the Dragon picked up by Cloud9. That top turret though has gone down. sOAZ, they made the decision there. Let's take that trade, try and keep them off the Dragon. Didn't quite work out as planned, but that tower has gone down in Fnatic's favor. We're still at around 1,500 gold separating these two teams. Neither of them being able to make any real headway when it comes to either getting that lead back from Cloud9 side or Fnatic getting a bigger lead. And the thing with that trade for Fnatic is, even though the Dragon was worth a lot of gold and clearly Cloud9 valued it, Fnatic got to make a trade that now Cloud9 can't make again. It was a top turret for a Dragon objective. Since they've now pushed it to the inhibitor, if they do that again, it's not a trade Cloud9's going to opt into. Overall, once again, that is a very slightly better trade for Fnatic. And we saw some pings going down onto the top lane outer turret there. A basically free pot of gold for Cloud9 at this point. Put a couple of men onto that one. We'll see if they can take that down. YellOwStaR still commanding position around the Baron area. Again, the Ghost just sent out by LemonNation just to scout around. One of them does find YellOwStaR hiding inside of the brush, and that gives Cloud9 now the better position on Baron and allows them to continue with this yo-yo game of clearing wards out. And I gotta say, Cloud9's actually staying together pretty well when you consider that their shot caller is missing. Stuck back in North America high, unfortunately, with his health problems. Could not make the trip, which is why Link is here. And they've been desperately practicing, trying to get Link as vocal as High was, since he is a shot caller. But CLG uses a dual shot calling system, and really, that's not the way Cloud9 has rolled for most of the season. He's got his items now with the completed Void Staff onto Lulu. He's very powerful. The team itself is only 2 turrets behind. They're 1,000 gold behind. They're longtime rivals who have more often than not come out on top against them. And they're in position to at least win this game at 32 minutes. It's very close. That's right, I was talking about that they were pinging earlier. Part of the reason why that gold has come back a little bit for Cloud9 was Balsam simply walked into that one and took it down without too many problems whatsoever. And again, both teams moving back, and we'll continue with this dance around Baron where lots of wards being cleared out and replaced already. There's one still for Fnatic at the mouth of the Baron pit there though. We'll see where that gets switched out. Good time to maybe take a look at a couple of items here, and want to look back to our AD carries in the featured matchup. We see that both of them actually picking up Phantom Dancer and Last Whisper. The difference, of course, is that Blade of the Ruined King Bloodthirst.
And this is actually the point in the game, Joe, where Twitch becomes much more powerful than Graves. Obviously, it is position-based for AD carries, as it always is, but just with the stealth and that rat-a-tat-tat to hit almost every target on Fnatic, Twitch is better right now, if they can force a fight.
TP coming in from balls. Fnatic had already seen that one coming and decided we should back away as the Twin Shadows come in there. The Ghost coming around. Sneaky is in the middle. He's going to get the slow off onto xPeke, but Fnatic have replied and, you know, moved themselves back to that inner turret in mid lane fast enough that they weren't risking moving through that tight avenue to try and get involved.
It's all about vision control trading here at the Baron area. Both teams trying to kind of catch each other in corridors. Both teams have tremendous amount of AoE burst if they really land the right stuff. Cloud9 on the side would be a Twitch AoEing with Lulu's Glitter Lances, whereas Fnatic is even more so. Dragon, Shockwave, and the Graves AoE would just obliterate Cloud9. That's why these tight moves around the Baron pit are so valuable, and getting a team pushed back to their turret to get vision control is a constant swing of momentum.
Oh, need to be a little careful here. Actually sidestep from Peke away from the Dark Binding of LemonNation. Just want to point out Peke's build while we're talking about him. Double blasting one here. Just showing us that he wants that extra power right now and can't afford to wait. Ball's actually catching out YellOwStaR here. This could be a little bit dangerous. Cyanide's coming from the top. Are they realistically going to take out Trundle? I don't think so. The teleport will come around for sOAZ. Actually cancelled there in the end. Ooh. But now Cloud9 managed to lock up one. YellOwStar's is squishy, his target on the entire team, and Ball right up there in front of him. Throws down his pillar. They can't take xPeke. Well, this is Shockwave territory. They landed as well. Meteos is going to go low. Can they finish him off? He's going to rappel out of there, and now it's Cloud9 turning around and chasing.
And Fnatic is still pushing with sOAZ. They have not suffered a casualty yet. This is a huge move for Fnatic.
LemonNation going low. Peke actually going to stop them from recalling on this one. Balls also just trying to keep them from pushing back in. xPeke going to go low. They actually can finish him off there. Link is going to go towards Rekkles now as well. He goes down. LemonNation got that kill. We have seen Meteos come back in. He's actually stopping now the push from Cyanide. From sOAZ in there, but Cloud9 are going to get the inner tower.
They have burned so much to get those few kills. Now, how do they capitalize? There are two main damage dealers down on Fnatic's side and a third stuck away. They're going straight for that inhibitor.
This trade will be a happy one for Cloud9, getting the kill advantage, stopping sOAZ, and going a step further than sOAZ in that bottom lane by taking the middle lane inhibitor. We've got 30 seconds to Dragon, still 20 seconds until Peke and Rekkles come up. Cloud9 are headed towards Baron here.
It's because it's still a 5v3, and the teleport, remember, was cancelled by sOAZ, so he can't make it in a position. Cloud9 could burn this Baron down before Fnatic even makes it into the rage. They might try, though. Cyanide is there. His ultimate's up, so he can come in stealth.
He's going to surely come in stealth from this one, but have they got the vision in there? No, Cloud9 secure that one. It's Meteos that will finish off with the smite. Nice fluid call in here from Cloud9. This was a big question mark about them, but we see how efficiently they've pulled off that move, the sweep up towards Baron.
Exactly, because that was an example of Fnatic pushing Cloud9 to the absolute limit. They forced them into multiple team-based decisions, and Cloud9 ended up making it work, but they might be sticking around here with the Dragon up because they had to clear super minions. Fnatic might be able to rush this Dragon down. It's Cloud9 trying to make it in for a team fight, because if they get another one, they could end the game.
And they're moving in en masse here. Sneaky, you can see, trying to get in position from that one. Dragon is very low. It is going to be Fnatic to get that one, but will they want to fight? Surely not. sOAZ even using his ultimate to go away, but they've gone towards Peke. Shockwave on the backside, but Peke is going to go down. And now sOAZ being the target. He is the tanky one, but he's being chased very efficiently. Binding just whisking by. Didn't quite land onto sOAZ. They're going to go up though onto YellOwStaR, who's basically the sacrificial lamb there, trying to draw the AD carry away. It worked, but 2 men are down. Cloud9 might make a choice to keep pushing.
Incredibly dangerous move there by Fnatic to get that Dragon, because they lose a lot of shielding right here. Balls is incredibly tanky. Look at the armor. He can tank this turret. They might go for the win in the face of Fnatic.
They're going to go for it here in the first Nexus turret has already gone down. Balls says, I don't care about you guys. I want the turrets. They're going to take the second one. They turn around for the fight, killing off Cyanide. sOAZ won't even be focused. They want the Nexus here. Rekkles is trying to hammer away on Balls. Won't work out for them. Cloud9 take down Fnatic. Brilliant decision making there to end that game.
What a game that was, Joe, from Cloud9 strategically. Amazingly enough, they forced the fights at the right moments when Fnatic forced them to. They were down in the game. They kept their rotation start. Link has a huge smile on his face because they just took down Fnatic at the All-Stars right here. If you're Fnatic, you got to be stunned right now.
Woeful for Fnatic, really. Let's not forget that from the round-robin group stage, 4 out of the 5 teams will go through into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Fnatic, though, they've lost their first 2 games. That is not an easy position to come back from. After having a great start here, they've got a lot of people behind them here in the stadium. Something has to change for them, but I want to focus on the positives from this one. Cloud9, the question marks that we had, I guess they've answered it.
They're definitely starting to answer them here. I really love the fact that they brought out the Twitch pick. Cloud9 is always a team to heavily prepare, and Sneaky, who was an already versatile AD carry, put another AD carry into his repertoire, and he just came out pretty big in that game. So many times he would open up in a strange position, kind of confuse Fnatic, and give him an edge off of that one. Their strength as well in the top lane, the rock they rely on, Balls. Meteos camped for him, but he still became that monster, and the pillars down the stretch, plus his armor ability to tank the turret, helped them A, chase down Fnatic for the kills, but B, finish the game in a timely fashion. 38-minute win after the game being pretty much anyone's game 5 minutes prior.
And earlier on in the game, I was talking back to the point from our analyst desk that they were saying they need better control over Dragons.
Yeah.
In the game against OMG, they made some bad decisions to fight there. Funnily enough, the finisher here was Fnatic starting off the Dragon and then being chased out, killed, and Cloud9 ending the game. Let's not forget, I mean, Dragon's always important, but is it worth risking against a Baroned up team?
Exactly. At 36 minutes into the game where they've actually lost a couple team fights in a row, I actually feel like Fnatic may have just been really worried about getting outscaled.
Yeah.
Sneaky was getting pretty big on Twitch, and they knew how Graves versus Twitch kind of had a timer on it. Not to mention the Trundle versus Shyvana. Balls are going to rip him to shreds by the end of the game, and he was just getting bigger and bigger. So Fnatic was kind of hoping to get that and get out and just kind of wait for the Baron and then make their move, because that was kind of all they had left.
And I was wondering there, at the end we saw Peke, or the fight in the top side of the jungle with that shockwave that, whilst it did a lot of damage, didn't really offer them what that shockwave needs to offer them. They had no follow-up to it, number one.
Yeah.
It didn't have the damage to burst a single person down, and that's the perfect position for a shockwave. Like, it doesn't get much easier to hit a big shockwave like that.
Peke, in my opinion, actually played out of his mind for most of the game.
Yeah.
This wasn't a game, the analyst desk might have a different view, where teams made that many big mistakes. Obviously, at the end, Fnatic going for Dragon was one that ended the game, but they were already losing up to that point. That was just a game of a lot of forced decisions that created conflict, and then it was all about who had better execution. At the very start of the game, remember that 2v2 in the top lane? It was Fnatic for a lot of the early moves. And then later on in the game, it was actually Cloud9 who ended up outplaying them. Yeah,
dragging them in. We saw, again, the two sides almost of Fnatic. One way you think, wow, that was incredibly well baited out. If we're talking about the top lane in First Blood that came in very decisive, then we see the Fnatic that look undecisive, or maybe even worse, commit to a bad decision overall.
Yeah, and with maybe the bad decision making from Fnatic, they won so much with their poke comp down the stretch. When it didn't work against OMG, they kind of shied away from it. They're going to have to do a little bit of searching on the second day. They're always a team that adapts well, though.
Well, we are going to be heading over to Shox, who's standing by with Meteos from Cloud9.
Thank you very much, guys. First off, Meteos, congratulations on that victory. Great coming into the tournament here with a win, and probably also versus Fnatic, because you guys have had a lot of games in the past already. Talk me through the game, the early game where the top lane exchange was not ideal.
Yeah, I messed up a little bit early game top. I flashed in thinking I could like kill Shyvana with my Q, but my Q was actually on cooldown when I flashed in, which was just a pretty big misplay, and we got a little bit behind from that. But after that, my team played really well and sort of carried us through the early game. We lost a lot of dragons, but Sneaky was playing really well on Twitch, and he was able to force a lot of flashes by just opening on them in really unexpected ways, and then using the rest of our catch, like Elise stuns, Morgana binds, and Trundle pillars. We were able to just get a lot of catches on, especially Orianna, because he's really immobile.
Yeah, you guys did very well. I was actually particularly impressed with even the shot calling at the end of the game when we said that that might be a little bit of a difficult point with Hai, of course, not being here. So how have you tried to make, is Link now the shot caller, or has someone else taken up the role?
Link has stepped up and done a lot of shot calling, which it's a lot of props to him because it's super hard to just come into a new team and just sort of try to take command, but he's done a really good job. He's played really well, and he's worked with us to just basically make us play as well as we can.
Yeah, and you guys played very well. Up later today, of course, you're going to play versus SKT, the reigning world champions. So how are you looking forward to that matchup?
Well, I think SKT is a million times better than us. We've scrimmed them the past 2 days, which is actually a huge pleasure because they're just extremely good. Everything we do, it feels like they just have a better answer for. And so we learn a lot from playing them. And maybe if we play extremely well and they slip up, we might be able to take it off them. But I'm sort of not going into the most confidence, but we'll do our best and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you never know, of course, going in with the best of hopes. Of course, Hai isn't here. Is there anything you want to say to him? Of course, we all wish he gets better very soon.
Well, I just hope Hai feels better. I'm really looking forward to playing with him again. Link's done a great job, but I miss you, Hai.
We all miss him here. Well, thank you very much, Meteos, and congratulations. That's all for now. Let's head back over to the guys at the analysis desk for more information on the game.
Thank you very much, Shox. And it appears that apple pie is greater than the baguette, at least in today's head-to-head matchup. And of course, props to Monty for predicting correctly. Let's talk a little bit about the game. I think Jat summarized a lot of the macro strategy very well. We're going to go back, look at a few replays. Before we do, straight up head-to-head lanes. It's the first time we've seen that all day. It's not something that happens very often. xPeke is somebody I want to highlight. He had 94 CS average over the 2 games at 10 minutes. So he is CSing like a monster, but it's not necessarily helping Fnatic transition into a powerful mid-game state.
Yeah, there's one thing I think that's going well for Fnatic despite these losses, which is xPeke's play as far as laning goes. This game at 10 minutes, 98 to 87 minions. 20 minutes, 194 to 177. So xPeke is continually outplaying his opposition one-on-one. Problem is Fnatic's making a lot of mistakes outside of that, obviously.
Not working in their favor, unfortunately.
Yeah, I really felt Fnatic did well early, but then they just threw it away. Like their lead at 2 questionable decisions, one contesting a blue buff, and then later, all the way at the end, if we saw that exchange, yeah, Joe talked a bit about how that shockwave wasn't amounting to much. It was just a disengaged shockwave, and I felt that was okay because they kept Cloud9 busy long enough so they could fall back and let sOAZ take 2 towers for free. But then Fnatic got overconfident. They're like, hey, let's drag him back to us again, and then just lost out completely.
Well, dial it back just a little bit. Before all of the drama happened, Fnatic did actually have control. We do have a replay to at least talk through one of those team fights. So Fisho, highlight what was positive and negative about this.
Well, so first of all, Fnatic's side here actually decide to go for the fight even though YellOwStaR is dead. He's not in this fight. He's all the way back in the base. And the issue for Fnatic, and the issue Krepo brought up himself, is Fnatic were greedy in this game. There were many times where they actually disengaged well, did a good thing, and then in the end, they go back in. We saw it in the last fight. This one as well here. You see Cyanide and sOAZ, if we just start rolling the clip, they're greedy to get in towards Cloud9 here. They want to get straight into them. The rest of them, the rest of Fnatic
this is the result.
Is too far. Yeah, this is the result here. We roll again though. The rest of Fnatic are too far away to join in. There's no shockwave from xPeke here to help out with sOAZ and Cyanide. So they take so much damage. Yes, they kill the support, but it's too late. It's a beautiful, beautiful shockwave though coming in, but it's just too late. There's nobody there to do the damage after the shockwave, and the only thing Fnatic can do is try and chase, but they don't get anything. And in the end, they actually give up 2 kills because they went in split and too fast.
Not to mention that if Meteos had enough, we were looking at this before, he was within repel range right there, and had he had enough mana for an E, they could have actually turned around and gotten maybe even a kill or more.
100% agree, and it was the issue for Fnatic. They made some good moves. We saw some very beautiful shockwaves from Orianna. Yet though, whenever they actually did something very good, Cloud9 could just turn it around, especially because Fnatic were too greedy or made a big mistake, and the last one was definitely one of them. Yeah,
Fnatic was a team where they had very smart overall decision-making. They were up 3-1 on Dragons, 7-5 on both blue buffs and red buffs. They were, until the endgame pushes, 6-3 on turrets. All the be smart, think about the game objectives, they outplayed Cloud9 down the line. They took everything down the line. The problem was, when it came down to there's a battle in front of us, they're like, let's fight a 4v5, and did that like 3 times and lost the game because of it.
Although I do think Cloud9's vision control was a little better. I saw Fnatic really misuse their sweeps. At one point, YellOwStaR had an Orcus lens, and he could literally just sweep all the areas in one go and then save the other sweeps on the remaining members. But they ended up double sweeping bushes constantly. They even missed a ward at the side of Baron that just gave Cloud9 the security like, hey, they're literally not at Baron. They're trying to bait us in. Let's just push mid. And then Cloud9 is really good at recognizing these openings, and this is a glimpse of the former Cloud9 in its full glory coming through, saying, yeah, you guys can try and play the map, but we'll play it better than you, and that's what ended up happening.
Well, not only that, but we can talk about the kind of early game objectives that Fnatic got, but as Jat was talking about as well, they were really playing for that late game. You have the Twitch, you have the Trundle that can just go ahead and ult the Shyvana and steal all the stats. So if you're Cloud9, in a way, not fighting these objectives early and staying, really, they stayed very close within a couple thousand gold that entire game. And by the end, all you have to do is wait for your opponent to make a mistake, and then you can capitalize it and close the game like that.
You have set me up beautifully because Fnatic made multiple of those mistakes. We have another replay. Let's pull a second one up onto your screen. It was probably the first real overcommitment that Fnatic made, and it was something that we've seen them repeat a couple of times. Krepo, talk us through, what's happening here.
Yeah, this is, again, at Blue Buff. This is where Fnatic tries to force. They have a little bit of a lead, so they try to exploit that lead by going for blue buff, but they're reaching too far. They're getting poked over the wall, and look how chunked everybody is right now. They have to get out of there real quick, but they're still greeting. They want that blue buff, and then they want to move out. But I believe at this point we see a teleport coming down. We see Elise flanking. Actually, the teleport's coming a little later, I believe. But yeah, Cloud9 is closing them in, and Fnatic's too chunked, so they can't really escape up, left, and down. Everything is closed in, so they're just going to try and kill somebody. Here's Balls TPing in. Okay, sOAZ reacted to the TP of his own, but look at xPeke, super low. He managed to get 1 kill here on Link, I believe, but it's all for naught because this is so close to the base of Cloud9, Twitch will just come in and clean up. And this is where I really think Fnatic threw away their lead, and they should recognize that if you're this close to an enemy base, just ignore the blue buff. It's not worth it. Get out.
Maybe they were just scared to go late game and just felt like we need to do something again and again and again. And the fight they had, where there were 4 members, they disengage, sOAZ takes 2 towers down the bottom lane, and yet they still feel the need to actually go back in and start a fight. I'm not sure if they were afraid of going to late game or they were just too aggressive.
Well, Freak, just last comments before we move on.
Yeah, so to me it's like, I know you can be afraid of the late game, but you can play these like small advantage windows over and over again and just build too big of a lead. Like, yes, Twitch is good, but if you stay 1 item up on an AD carry, Graves will always outdamage Twitch. That will always happen if you're an item up, and as long as you play the safe moves, you can keep that item lead.
But for that, you need better vision control.
Sure.
Well, we'll have to see if Fnatic can bounce back. I fear their fate may not be entirely in their own hands. We do have to take a very quick commercial break, and when we are back, there'll be more All-Star action as OMG take on the Taipei Assassins. Do not go away.
They're TPing. Go for it, go for it.
Kill him. I'm here. Graves. Shyvana. Get Shyvana. Stand back for
No flash.
Good job. Take bomb tower right now.